Hello and welcome to Between the Hashes. I'm your host, Matt Keim, coming to you from Los Angeles, California. And today we are going to be talking about a top 5 matchup to kick off the 2022 college football season. Ohio State, number 2, versus number 5, Notre Dame. There's a lot of interesting storylines for both teams. On one hand, you have national title expectations, which are pretty much just perennial expectations for Ohio State at this point. And on the other hand, you have a new coach, new quarterback for Notre Dame. For Ohio State, they are trying to build on a season in which they scored 45.7 points per game by redshirt sophomore quarterback C.J. Stroud. Now, C.J. Stroud is replacing a number of his top weapons: Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, tight end Jeremy Ruckert, and a few others that got drafted off to the NFL. A lot of those guys sat out during the Rose Bowl, and we saw, without Olave, without Wilson, just how potent that receiving core, especially Jackson Smith-Njigba, could be. Now, JSN is probably one of, if not the best receivers in the draft. He's got top 10, top 15 draft grades, maybe the top first round overall. CJ Stroud is one of the Heisman favorites, alongside Bryce Young and a few others. He'll probably be, at worst, the second quarterback taken off the board, barring injury or collapse. You have a tackle in Paris Johnson, who's getting first-round grades. This offense is loaded. This offense is ready to go. They're returning running back Travion Henderson. Now, they have been dealing with some preseason injuries to some of the other players, but that should not slow them down too much. Again, they're building off of a season in which they scored 45.7 points per game. The offense is not the issue with Ohio State. Their major issue last year was their defense. Ohio State gave up almost 250 yards passing per game. That has to get fixed. They were 105th in points against, and they hired former Oklahoma State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, who was rated as the nation's top assistant coach last year. And so the hope is that Jim Knowles is going to rejuvenate this defense. And frankly, Ohio State has been recruiting at such a high level on both ends of the ball. They have 3 top 5 classes, 5th, 2nd, and 4th, or 4th, 2nd, and 5th, respectively, going back to 2020. And so they're always going to be loading up. So the talent's there. Hopefully the scheming is there on their end. And now they just need to execute for the most part. And the big advantage for them is that they start this season at home. Now, Notre Dame's a bit of a different story. They lost their starting quarterback, their starting running back, 3 of their top 4 receivers from last year. They do have one of the more talented tight ends in the league at Michael Mayer. He'll be on the awards watch lists, and a few other guys worth mentioning. But like Ohio State, their defense was also kind of an issue last year. They are replacing longtime coach Brian Kelly, a man who led them to multiple playoff appearances, a man who led them to a national championship appearance, a man who led them to their only conference title game appearance, given their guest run in the ACC in 2020. They are replacing Jack Cohn with quarterback Tyler Buchner, who's, while he's not exactly a new face, he had a number of rushing attempts last year. He threw for about 300 yards last year. He appeared in 10 games, so he has live game experience. But this is his first real start, and this is going to be a huge test for them on the road at night against the second-rated team in the country. Notre Dame's secondary, similar to Ohio State's, was a weak point last year, and they lost their best player from that secondary from a year ago, and Kyle Hamilton, to the Baltimore Ravens. And their pass defense, they gave up over 220 yards per game, and that was with a first-round safety. So what are they going to be this year? Now, the matchup I want to see is that secondary versus Ohio State's offense. I don't know that they're going to have an answer, especially with a relatively green offense. They do have a number of faces who have seen game action, and that's going to be important for Notre Dame. But the problem is that they lost their top 3 of their top 4 receivers. They lost their quarterback. They lost their running back from last year. They do have one of the best tight ends in the league, Michael Mayer, so he may have a big game depending on whether or not Ohio State can stop him. But I expect that Ohio State is just going to be too much. The line, as per ESPN.com, is minus 17.5. I think Ohio State wins. I think they cover. And I think Ohio State gets a very strong start to their 2022 campaign with aspirations that go way beyond just a Big Ten championship. Thanks for watching this, guys. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be doing weekly videos where I take a look at a game or two each week and give you my predictions. Subscribe to Empire Media. That's AMPIRE Media for more updates on the Washington Commanders with the John Keim Report. Updates on the Washington Capitals with All's Caps, hosted by former player Carl Alsner and AP hockey writer Steve Wino, and more at Empire Media. Thanks and enjoy the game.